Welcome to another in our series of felting videos. This is Sue Bunch from Back-to-Back Fiber Products, and the project for today is to show you a variety of felted flower shapes. Throughout this video, or videos that I'm doing, I'll show you about 6 different flower shapes and different techniques for making more of your own. So after doing a few of these, you'll probably get some better ideas of your own, things that you want to try, flowers that are your favorites, or shapes or colors that you want to use for yourself. But what we're going to be talking about in this video are these 6 different flower shapes. And they're wet felted and needle felted, so you'll be learning techniques if you don't already know them already. So I'm just going to show you some of the different ones that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be doing roses. So you see what they look like here. And of course they can be different colors and whatever, but you can see what they look like. And these flowers, you know, are not going to be exactly like the roses that might grow out in your garden or that you get in a bouquet. But they'll be close enough that you'll be able to tell, oh, that's a rose or that's a lily. Here's lily shapes. And you can, they're, you know, recognizable as a lily. And they're sort of fun and colorful and different kinds of shapes of their petals. Then we'll talk about pansies, which I just love, and they're just so much fun to do. These are a little bit larger than a normal size, but we'll talk about how you can adjust the size of them. So there's pansies. And this is what I call petunia shape. They're not really exactly a petunia, but sort of like the shape of a petunia. And they could be sort of like a generic flower, and they're fun, and you can blend different colors and in a bouquet that it really looks colorful and just fun to have something different to do. Okay, then I'm going to also talk about tulip shapes. So I've got them in different colors and sizes here. So we'll talk about tulips. And also, this is what I call snapdragons, but it could be about anything. But you can see it's just on a stem with little color puffs going up the stem. And then we'll take a minute and we'll talk about how you can make some greenery. Sometimes it's fun to just have some leaves that are, you know, in a bouquet that gives a little bit of extra texture and color. And we'll talk about how you can make those if you like to. Now, next I want to talk about all the different materials that we're going to need to collect to make these different flowers. And as I mentioned, it is a wet felting project and a needle felting project. So you'll need a piece of foam. It doesn't have to be a big piece, but a foam work surface and a felting needle. And if you've never used a felting needle, they have little barbs at one end. Under a microscope, they look like fish hooks. And as they punch through animal fibers, those little barbs grab the scales that are on animal fibers and hold them and bond them together and turn them to felt. So we're going to be doing both needle felting and wet felting. So you need a piece of foam, a felting needle. As far as a work surface, you can see on my table today I have a towel. It's because it'll get a little bit wet, not bad, but a little bit, so you'll want to have something to protect your work surface. And I just like to lay out a towel on a table or the kitchen counter or something. And then you'll also need a selection of roving to make the flowers, and I've just put some different colors out here that that we're going to use for our projects. Also, it's good to have a felting mat, and we'll talk about using that. I especially like to use that on the stems. Also going to need some templates to make the flowers, and it's be something to make a circle. So here's a lid I have off of some of my storage ware. Some of the smaller ones, I've just used an old DVD I have here. So find something to make circles with. So that could be about 8 inches across, or that for the larger ones, and maybe 4 or 5 inches across for some smaller ones. And then you might want to have a felting stick or a pencil around, a marker that we're going to mark so that we'll know what size to make our flowers. Bring out some scissors, because we'll be using scissors a little bit. We're also going to need some wire. This is 20 gauge floral wire that I found that I like to use for the stems, and also some pipe cleaners. And you'll see the technique that I've put together that I like to use for mine. Also, if you're going to do the pansies or the tulips, I have some little templates put together that you can use for that part of the project. You'll also need to have some bubble wrap. We use the bubble wrap for felting the flowers, and so just little pieces of bubble wrap like this work good. And then you also need to have some a spray bottle of some soapy water. So I just put water, and I put maybe a couple of tablespoons of detergent like I used to wash dishes in the kitchen sink. I use Dawn, but it could be any other kind works fine too. And I usually just squirt a bit in, but if a lot of people want to know how much, so I'd say maybe a couple of tablespoons. And warm water works good, but if it cools off, it seems to work fine too. So the first thing we're going to work on, after you get all of your materials collected, the first thing we're going to work on is the stems. So get your pipe cleaners and your florist wire, and then we're going to get some roving that we're going to use for the stem. And I usually cut it so it's so if I measure along the wire here, the length of it, it might be 6-8 inches longer than the wire. And that varies some, depends on how you work. And it also depends on how long the stem's going to be, because depending on the size of the vase that you're going to put it in, maybe you have a container that's a little bit smaller. You don't need long stems. Sometimes you can start with long stems, and since it's just wire, you can cut it off or fold it over. You may also decide that you want to not have these in put them in a vase. You just may want to sew them onto a purse. Maybe you want to put a pin back on them and wear them as a pin on a sweater or a jacket, and that would be fun too. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use the flowers, so we'll talk about the different ways that you can work with them. But the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is making the stems. So again, get the wire, your pipe cleaners, and some of the roving, the length that you'll need to make the stem. So I'll see you back here in just a few minutes. For the first part of the project, we're going to talk about making the stems for the flowers, if you're going to be using them to put into a vase or some sort of a container. So to do that, here's some of the materials that we're going to need to make the flower stems. You're going to need a piece for each one piece of floral wire, and this one is 20 gauge, and a couple of pipe cleaners. This wire that I get, I leave it for the particular vase I was using. I wanted the stems to be fairly long, and I found that works pretty good. And if I have a shorter vase, then I can just fold over the end. And then with that size of a wire, I need to have 2 pipe cleaners. And then I have a length of the roving that I'm going to put onto the stem, and I make it, well, I kind of lay it down here on the wire and make it maybe, 3-4 inches at each end, something like that. And you can always start with it longer, and then when you get to the end you can pull off the part that you don't use. So I also have a felting mat, and I have a piece of the bubble wrap that I lay down here just to protect the surface, it doesn't get too wet. And I forgot to mention earlier, if you have some needle nose pliers, and that helps it with this too. So when you get those things collected, we'll just get started here. And don't forget your soapy water in the spray bottle. Now, as I said, we're going to start with the making the stems, if that's the way that you're going to use your bouquet in a vase or something. Here's one that I have finished, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like. This is my own invention, and I found it works quite easily for me, and it's a way to attach the stem to a flower. And you can see it here. This one is finished, and it has this little puff of fiber at the end, and you can see a little piece of the pipe cleaner here and a little piece of the florist wire here, and we'll talk to you about how to do that and why I do it. I'll show you on a finished one. Here's one of the roses, and it's a way of attaching this stem onto the flower that you've made. So you can see what it looks like there. All right, now we're going to get started. So I'm going to set this aside, and we'll get started with ours. First I start out by taking the 2 pipe cleaners, because I need it to be a little bit longer than the florist wire. So the pipe cleaners are never quite long enough, at least for the projects I've been working on. So if you need to make it longer, just twist the pipe cleaners together till you get a nice long length of your pipe cleaner. So now the pipe cleaner and the florist wire, and the one's a little bit longer, and that's fine. So next thing I do to start out is I'm going to make these little swirls up here at the top. Maybe you can see here, and as I work, hopefully I can get close enough to the camera so that you can see how that works. So I'm going to take the end of the florist wire and just grab it with the needle nose pliers, and I'm just going to twist it here a little bit till I get like a little bit of a circle. And sometimes I just take it off, grab it with the needle nose pliers. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm just trying to make a little bit of a flat surface so that I can needle felt that onto the flower. So maybe you can see it's just like a little circle there, and then I sort of twist it like that. Maybe you can see there how I've just bent it a little bit like that. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the pipe cleaner and just do a little twisting like that, and it's a little bit easier with the pipe cleaner, it's not quite so stiff. And then I bend it over again so it's a little shape like that. Now I'm going to lay them right side by side, and I often just like to hold them together here at the top, and now I'm going to twist them together. And I do that because I find that it's very easy then for the roving to stick to the pipe cleaner. If you just use the wire, it's just nearly impossible for that to stick to it. And then the wire gives you, it's nice and stiff, it stands up nice in a bouquet, but you can also bend it around and as you're making your arrangement. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just twisting the wire around the florist wire here, and just continue working and moving on down the wire, and just keep twisting like that. And it takes a little while, but it's not hard to do. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Use different ways you can do it. Sometimes you can just hold with one hand and twist with the other. But you see how it's coming along here. And then before too long, you'll get to the place where you twisted the pipe cleaners together. And it'll be a little stiff there, but you can just keep working along. And sometimes you'll feel the little wires poking out, and you can go back later with your needle nose pliers and pinch that down if that concerns you. So now we'll just keep moving along here, all the way down to the end. And we're just about done with this one. So here we are, down to the end. We just have a little bit of the pipe cleaner left, and I just fold it over like that and kind of twist it back on itself and fold it around. Okay. Now we have that all wrapped around. Now there's some little sharp points here, and you can go in with the needle nose pliers if you want, and sort of compress them down in there, and then you won't have to worry about those poking you at all. And we still have our wires up here bent, and that's fine. Now I kind of twist them to each side at this point. So I have the pipe cleaner folded one direction, and I twist the florist wire the other direction. So we're going to be having a flat surface to attach that to the flower when the flower is completed. Now we're going to add the roving to it. And I start out with about, maybe 4 inches or so of roving. So I sort of pinch it here and leave about this much. And then I, sometimes I like to put this, I open up that little swirl of the pipe cleaner, and I just sort of tuck the fiber in that swirl and kind of press it with my finger back in so it just holds in place there. Then I'm just going to start now. At this point, I sort of grab up here at the top. That gives me kind of a little place to start twisting. And I hold the roving a little bit at an angle here, so you can see just a little bit of an angle. And sometimes I take a little bit and with my hand, depending on how compressed the fiber is, and sort of smooth it out in my thumb and finger here, and then I just start twisting like this. And you can see the roving. I have a little bit on an angle here, and I just pull it real tight between my thumb and my finger and hold it real tight against the wire here, and then you just sort of let your fingers go a little bit and twist, and then pinch your finger and thumb down again. And now I'm going to let up a little bit and twist again, and then pinch it once more. And as you do a couple of twists, then take the roving and smooth it out a little bit, and then you're going to pinch it right there again. And we're going to twist and pinch, twist and pinch, twist and pinch, and continue doing that all the way down the wire. And every once in a while you want to stop and smooth out the roving a little bit. Twist and pinch, twist and pinch, twist and pinch. Like that, all the way down to the very end. Now, after I'm finished here, I'm going to show you how you can wet felt this and make it a little more dense. When I first started doing these, when it was, you can see, right, even like that, it's very tight over the pipe cleaner. And you can just leave it that way. You don't have to go in and wet felt it, because it really stays quite well. I haven't really had any of them on a wrapping or anything on me. So, but I wanted to show you how to wet felt it in case you would like to go in and make it a little more dense and finished. So now I'm just about to the end, and I've got my fiber down here at the end, and I just keep twisting it twist and pinch, twist and pinch. When you get to the end, you kind of have to maneuver it and twist it back on itself till you, can you see there how it's twisting back on itself now? If you have a little too much at the end, you can just pull it off, or you can just continue on up the stem. But you can see how it came out. And up here at the top, we have our little poofy top here, and we'll talk later about how we're going to attach that to the flower. Now, I'm going to show you how, if you want to wet felt this and make it a little more dense, you're going to lay down a piece of bubble wrap just to keep your surface a little more dry, and lay this on top of your felting mat. And then we're just going to take the spray bottle and spray this soapy water all the way up and down the stem here. And I kind of twist it so it gets wet on both sides. And I leave the end that's poofy, I'm not going to wet that. I'm just going to leave that dry up at the end. And then I'm just going to take the felting mat and just roll it like this. And this will take a little while. Don't get in a rush about it. But just keep working like that. And you might roll it 30, 40, 50 times, something like that. And then after you finish that side, you can turn it around this way. Same thing, we're going to spray it again till it gets all good and wet. And then again, we'll start rolling. And after you've done that, you know, for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and you're going to switch back and forth like that. Make sure that the poofy end stays out and leave it fluffy and dry as you can anyway. And just keep rolling it like that. And after you check maybe set yourself a timer or something like that. And just keep rolling it back and forth. And give yourself doing this maybe about 10 minutes. And after that, then you just take it to the sink and just rinse it off and kind of squeeze it in your hands and rinse off the bubbles. And then I like to just roll it in a towel and squeeze it to get the water out, and then just set it someplace to dry. And I like to do all the stems ahead of time if I figure out how many flowers I'm going to do, and then I have that part of it already done. And you don't have to do this project all at once. You can do a little bit at a time. So maybe one evening you can do the stems, and another evening another flower or two, and in a week you'll have a whole beautiful bouquet of flowers. So work on your stems, and when we come back, we'll start talking about how to make some of the flowers. So we'll see you back here in just a few minutes. For this part of the demonstration, I'm going to talk about specifically how we do this kind of a flower. I call this the Petunia shape, but it's really just a generic flower shape. And the technique that I've been using for a lot of these flowers starts and repeats itself over and over. There are some little adjustments depending on the shape of the petals or things like that. But this is the one we're going to start with, and you can see kind of what it looks like and about the size of it in relationship to my hand. So if you wanted to make something smaller, then you'll start with a smaller diameter. Okay, the things that we're going to need are a couple of pieces of bubble wrap. So you can see about the size I have, a couple of squares of bubble wrap here with the small little bubbles. And then I have a marker and something to mark a circle here for a template. And then for this particular flower, I'm going to use a couple of different colors of roving here. And so to start out, I turn the bubble wrap over to the smooth side, and that's where I'm going to mark. So this is really just a little template so that I can know what size to make this. So I just kind of draw a circle around here, and then I'm done with that. And as I said before, if you want to do something smaller, you could just find something, a smaller circle, like like a DVD here, an old DVD, and you could work around that. So you'll see yourself as you get making these what size you like to make, and you can find something to make that template shape for yourself. Okay, so that's on the smooth side. Now I'm going to flip it over so that the bubble side is up, and you can see, it's easy to see where the circle is here. And then we're going to start laying out our roving. And I put about 2 layers, and this is my technique. There's a lot of different ones out there, but this one seems to work for me with this project. So you're just going to take the roving. Don't hold your fingers too close together to pull it apart. Hold your fingers apart a bit, about like so, and just pull it apart. And for me, sometimes it's hard to figure out how to make it even all the way around. So what I've been doing is I just lay some across like that, vertically, and then I have and just sort of make a cross like that. And to me that helps me, and sometimes depending on what the roving is like, I sort of fluff it out with my fingers. And then I just keep pulling and laying it down. And I overlap a little bit, and then I just kind of go around the circle here and just continue laying it down. Overlap a little bit. Sometimes if the roving gets too tight together, you can just pull it apart with your fingers and lay it down here. You can see how we're coming along. And this is sort of my basic technique that I've developed here with these particular flowers. There's other people have different techniques, and there's not any one way to do this. I'm just showing you my way, and maybe this will work for you, and you could adapt yours to something that you like. But I have had fun making these flowers, and it's fun to try different color combinations and different shapes. And each time I think I'm finished, then I think, oh, maybe I'll try another one. I also like to look up pictures on the internet and get ideas for different flower shapes and different colors and things like that. But like I said, most of these flowers, you know, they're not going to be the exact looking of the flower you have in your garden, but it's close enough that makes it fun when you have a little arrangement in your house or one to share with somebody. All right, now I've gone around one time, and now I want to go around a second time. So see, it's fairly even. There's a few thin spaces, but that's why I'm going to do a second layer. So now I'm just going to take the roving again and start around and just lay it over and just keep working around like that. Okay. And after we get the second layer done, which we'll have done here pretty quickly, and just pull off little pieces, and like I said, don't hold your fingers too close together. Sometimes when people are first starting to use roving, they say, well, I can't pull that apart. Well, the fibers are quite long, so you need to hold your fingers further apart and just pull off little puffs. So there you go. It's a fun project just to work on your own, but it's also fun to do with friends, and you could see all the different ones they could do, or maybe you've got kids or grandkids you could work with, or it'd be fun to do with a Girl Scout troop or 4-H kids. So there's lots of possibilities with this. I've been working on a project like this with some folks in a senior center and at the nursing home where my dad lives, and it's a very fun and easy project to do. Now after I've gone around the second time, sometimes I just lay my hand on to feel if there's a little place that I think needs a little bit more, and I just add a little bit. Now at this point, if you want to add other colors to it, this is the time to do it. So I decided for this one I'm going to add a little bit lighter pink. And you can, like I said, look at pictures on the internet. You get ideas of, you know, where the different colors are. I think with this one I'm just going to pull off I'm going to spread it out a little bit here, and I'm just going to put some real thin, kind of like on a pinwheel area like I've been doing, just little pieces like that. And this will give a little bit extra color to it, and you'll see when it's finished all the colors kind of blend into themselves, and being that it's a flower, you know, it's fun to have different colors in flowers. So just something like that. Like that. Now, That's all we're going to do for this, and now we're going to show you how we're going to do the wet felting. So we'll take the next piece of bubble wrap and we'll put it on top here, because now we're going to go to the kitchen sink and we're going to do the wet felting part. So kind of make yourself a little sandwich here and head for your sink. And I put a towel down beside my sink just because we're going to have a little soap and water here, and just to make it easy to work. So we'll meet you at the next step up at my kitchen sink. Now we're moved to a little workspace I have here by my kitchen sink. I've put another towel down and I brought my little flower shape here to work on. So I made the little sandwich with the bubble wrap to get to the kitchen, but now I've taken that top part off. And the next step is to wet this down. I have my spray bottle here again with the soapy water, and I'm just going to spray all around on the fiber here and to get it all wet. When you're first starting out, sometimes it's difficult to know how little water, and with these flowers, it's a little bit different than working on felting a purse or something. So we'll just get it all wet like that. Then we'll take another piece of bubble wrap with the bubble side down again, facing the flower, and we're going to lay it over and make a little sandwich. Then I like to just press it down a lot like that to get all of the water and soap soaked into the fibers. What happens with this is that as we add the soap and water and the agitating that we're going to be doing here as we roll this, that opens up the scales of the fibers, and as you agitate it, it will, the fibers will start holding and bonding to themselves and turning to a dense felt. So you can see that it's quite wet now, and so now we can start with the agitating part. And to do that, I'm just going to take this and roll it up, and just hold it in your hands here and roll it like this. So I like to roll. I usually count to 30 or 40. And then we're going to turn it 1/4 turn. And this particular method has worked easily for me, and after you've done several of these, you feel like you just get a little production line going here. So after you've rolled it around 30 times, we'll say this is about 30 times, we're going to unroll it. Then I just like to smooth it out a little bit with my hand. Sometimes the bubble wrap gets a little wrinkly. And then I'm going to turn it 1/4 turn, like that. And the reason for that is, whichever direction you roll when you're wet felting, that's the direction it's going to shrink. So if you kept rolling it in one direction, you wouldn't have a circular shape anymore. It would be quite oblong. So now here we go. We're going to do this again about 30-40 times. So you can either count to yourself, maybe make up a little song, set the timer on your phone, whatever you want. You'll kind of get used to about how long it takes. And if it's a little bit shorter, a little bit longer, it's not going to make that big of a deal either. But if you've got little kids there and they need practice counting, it's a good project for that too. So we'll do that again. Open it up like that. And then we'll make another 1/4 turn. And then after we've gone around 4 times, then we'll have another step. So this is kind of how I do most of those, pretty much all those flowers, but they have a different way of finishing them up. So this first step is what we use on all those flowers, except for the snapdragons. That's a different setup. But all the rest of the flowers, this is the first step. So there we go. This is our 3rd time around. And I often do this you don't have to stay at the kitchen sink. Sometimes I have a little workspace and I just sit down, and it's not very messy. If you've got a small table, maybe even a little TV table type thing, and put a towel down. I do quite a few of these. I do a lot of them, well, just if I'm watching a TV show or something. I have a little production line going, and you can see it's little soap suds out here once in a while, but not too bad. And then I come to the sink and do the next step. But for right now, for our taping purposes, this works out pretty good. Okay, so now we'll say that that's going to be done. So now we've gone around all 4 sides. And now let's open it up. Sometimes you just have to take your hands and kind of hold the fibers back a little bit. Ooh, it's looking real pretty. Very pretty. Now, with this, as I mentioned, this particular flower, how we finish each flower is going to be a little bit different. So this one, which I call the pansy flower, I like to have the edges sort of uneven. You can see on this one, just as we were working, they were kind of uneven. So you can just sometimes pull in the edges a little bit. And of course, there's, if you can see, there's the line that we drew to make the circle. And you can sometimes tuck it in with your fingers here a little bit. Sometimes it's fun just to have it look a little bit uneven on the edges. But if you want to, I often at this point just kind of take my fingers and even up the edges a little bit. I have on certain ones used my fingers and made it exactly even all the way around that circle. This particular one, I'm just going to make it a little bit uneven, because that's often how flowers are. They're not, you know, exactly circular all the way around. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But you can see how I'm doing here. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. But I just take my fingers and go around like that. So it's just a little bit uneven around the edges here with this particular flower. Okay, now that we've gotten that far, now we're going to do the next step. And it's very similar to what we were just doing. We're going to lay the bubble wrap back down, bubble side down, and we're going to go back and do the 30 or 40 rolls around again 4 times. So when you're finished with that, you know how to do it. You did it the first time around. We're going to do it again. When you get done with that, come back here, and then we'll do the next step. See you shortly. Okay, now I finished going around my second time, 30, 40 rolls each time. And now let's see how it's looking. There we go. Pretty good. And you can see it's really holding together pretty good now. And now we're going to our next step. So this, it should be holding together pretty good for you now. And now we're going to do some work at the sink, some more felting and fulling it. So now this is probably hard for you to pull it together like this, but now you can hold it together like that. Now we're going to move over to the sink, and I'm going to start the water running so it gets good and hot. So we'll see you at the sink in just a couple minutes. Now I've got some good and hot water going here, and I'm just taking my hands and I'm going to roll it around like that in my hands. And I'm going to count to about 30. 1, 2, 3. Just keep counting till you get to about 30. And just roll it around in your hands. Put some hot water on it, and you can see it's still pretty soapy. And now and then you want to open it up so it doesn't all felt to itself. And it's a little bit, I can feel it a little bit sort of sticking to itself. But it's starting to felt up a little bit. You can feel it and see it. You can see how it's sort of puckering up a little bit, and that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to do this just a little bit more. So do it till you count to 30 or 40 again. And the next part is I'll turn the water off now, and then for about 30 times I throw this down into the sink. This jarring of the fiber helps with the felting process. The more you do this, it shocks the fiber and pulls the fibers even more densely to themselves. So do this, you just throw it down. You can see what I'm doing here. Don't lose it down the drain. About 30 times, like that. And you can already see and feel it in your hands. You can see how it's pulling together here. And sometimes the edges start felting together, and you might want to pull it apart with your fingers a little bit. But you can see how puckery it's getting here. And that's what we're looking for. So now I have another step that I do sometimes. So I'll be right back to show you just on this other side of the sink here. Well, this little piece of felt is coming along pretty nicely, but sometimes if it needs to be felted and a little bit more puckery, I just put it on the bubble wrap, and I use my fingers, and I rub it and rub it and rub it and put a lot of pressure on it at this point. And you can see how it's starting. Do you see how it's starting to pucker up here? And just keep working it like that. If you happen to have a washboard, they're not easy to come by these days, but I have one that was my grandmother's. And if you have one around, you can use that too. And I usually put it down in the sink and let the water run on it. And that's another thing you can do. But you can do it just fine on the bubble wrap. Like that. And then you can roll it up in your hands some more. And that's probably about it. Now we're going to rinse it out. And I'll take a little break here while I rinse it out in the sink, and then we'll come back and see how it looks. See you in a minute. Okay, now I finished rinsing it, and we'll open it up here and see how it looks. You can see it's pretty puckery, and that's what we're looking for. So now I like to sort of work on the edges and pull out the edges a little bit. And at this point they're fairly flexible. You can see maybe right there I can pull little points of it out. Like that. And there's different places where it's thinner, but it has a nice edge to it. And you can keep working on it like that. Now, I often then take a towel and I'll lay it down here and roll it up and get some of the extra moisture out of it. At this point, like I said, many of the flowers that we're going to be doing here start out at this point. And then the way they're shaped and finished will show in different parts of the video. But this is the very beginning of how all of those other little flowers are done. So do your first one and get sort of the feel of it, and then you can pick out some of the other flowers that you want to try and give them a try for yourself too. So now I'm just going to lay that down and let it dry, and we'll come back and then I'll show you how to finish it up into the finished flower and put the stem on it. Here's how the little felted piece is that we were working on to begin with. And it's nearly dry. And you can see how we put a little bit of the different color, the lighter pink on the top. And when I show how to finish this little petunia, we'll have to be deciding if that's going to be the outside of the petunia or if it's going to be on the inside. But that will be another step down the road. I've been getting the the pieces ready for some of the other flowers we've been talking about. This is going to be for the rose, and it's going to be made the exact same way. I laid it out exactly the same, and you can see how much it shrinks up a little bit here, and you'll do the same. And the rose will have the edges the same as this. So just do exactly the same. If you're going to try out some roses, do it exactly the same, and leave the edges and shape it right around to that circle that we drew onto the bubble wrap. Now the tulip is going to be the same again. Just lay out your fiber and felt it down just like we did for the pansy piece. For the lily, I've laid it out like this and added a different color to it. I put 5 different brighter colored yellow stripes in it, and this one I'm going to show you how to wet felt a little bit differently. So I'm going to set that one aside, but I have that one ready to go. And then I have this one ready to do the pansy. Now, I have a pansy finished here. I'll show you one. I'll hold it in my hand here so you can see. And the pansy one, we have little patterns that come with it. There's 3 different pieces. This little piece, and there's 3 little pieces that come with the pansy. So they're going to be laid down and cut out of the finished felted piece. So, and often pansies are different colors. So I'm going to do, let's see, what was my plan here? I think I was going to do this one and this one in the orange, and then this piece here is going to be in the purple. So I split up the colors, but I'm going to make one big felted piece, and then later we'll come back in and we'll cut it. So that's how I did the pansies, and they're very fun. You can do a lot of different color combinations, and you might just look online and get some ideas for that. So I've got my things, you know, prepared. Sometimes I do several up ahead of time like that, and then I just work in a production line. So what I'm going to do next is to get several more flowers ready and start doing the felting process. So you might go ahead and do, if you want to try a tulip or a rose, and start getting all those ready. And maybe start felting them. And just get them to this point, and then the finishing process for each of them is just a little bit different. The starting process is all.